None of us here are interested in fossilized discipline practices and processes. And this is an opportune moment for us to look inward and evaluate what can be improved. We're now ready to turn it back to you for any questions, and my colleagues, including Amy Lee, Allison Woodall, and UCLA Vice Chancellor Michael Levine, are here to contribute when needed.
Great, thank you. I will open it now for questions from our colleagues. Regent Lieb.
Well, some of the comments that were made, I think, are absolutely correct in terms of what the academic senate said in terms of what kinds of things we're looking for. But I do think two things. One, I think that the timeline is still too long. I understand you want to have certainty and so forth, but when you look at the timelines, this is so beyond what is necessary and reasonable. It takes years to get to certain decisions. And I thought we were going to have a working group to discuss this. And Provost Newman, I just don't understand. There's some confusion here because you're talking about your own group that you're doing, but I think the Regents also wanted to have a working group to discuss it with the Academic Senate. And again, I think it's super important that we talk about shared governance. I heard the discussion of the importance of shared governance, but then when it comes to faculty discipline, it's not shared governance. So I would like to have a couple of understandings of what's going on.
So, Regent Lee, what I thought we agreed, or at least what you and I discussed, was that there would be we would continue with a faculty administration working group, which we've asked to look at all of these possible reforms, including cutting out time, bounding and requiring completion of certain segments of this process that right now are very much too long, including the possibility of a system-wide review process in order to make it more likely that people can exercise judgment when it's difficult to do that at the campus level. And you had proposed that there be a regent group that would intersect with that committee on a monthly basis, but the committee's work itself was intended to pursue these reforms as we've already discussed them. They haven't gone into those reforms yet, but they would be charged to do so by May. And you had proposed that there be a 3-person regent group that would intersect with them on a monthly basis. That was my understanding of how we were going to proceed.
Can I just chime in here? Excuse me for a moment. Yeah, that is exactly. I think that the request that I had was that the administration, the academic senate get together and undertake a comprehensive review of this disciplinary policies. And then a regents working group would meet monthly to review the process, see how it's going, and to give input before you came back to the regents and presented a proposal.
That's exactly what I thought and what I was trying to lay out. I hope that.
Yeah. So I think it's just, so the Regents panel that I would suggest would be Regent Lieb, Regent Saris, and Regent Anguiano. So I think we just hadn't gotten to that point and formalized it in a way that there would be these monthly check-in meetings.
Right.
And then what is the process? And so in May, we would then come to a decision as to, have some sort of negotiation and decide in terms of these timelines. Also, what I'm concerned about also is the fact that sometimes you have a hearing, and if the person isn't responding to it, you then have a second hearing, and you can't have punishments worse than the first. And I think those kinds of decisions also have to be looked at.
So these are all, these are all the matters that we've asked this joint committee to work on and to develop their recommendations by May so that the regents would be in a position to make decisions by July. That was my understanding of how we were going to proceed. This is, for us, a rapid timeline, but it's one that I think is both doable and appropriate. We understand the urgency of the matters, and I hope that this will allow my colleagues both to work judiciously and in the tradition of joint governance, and then provide to the regents their thoughts, which would then invite the kind of dialogue and decision-making you've imagined.
Okay. Yeah. So my feeling overall, I'm fine with that approach if that's how we're going to do it. Although ultimately the regents, what I'm hoping for is that the regents will have there will be some decision at the regents meeting in July.
That's the idea. Yeah.
Okay. And I think what my comments that I would like to make, and some of this is a little bit different from what the student speaker stated. I do also agree. There's been a lot. Our faculty is the greatest faculty in the world. We have, and we talked about fusion, we talked about hydrogen, we've talked about all these humanities. We have some wonderful faculty members. We have a few faculty members, like you would expect in any situation, that I think have gone out of line in terms of discriminatory behavior and doing things that I think are not correct. And so we have to have this kind of discipline process. And I think it has to be fair and it has to be quick, or at least it has to be complete. It has to be done in a reasonable manner. And so that's what I'm looking for with this working group.
I think that's what we're all working for, Regent Lieb, and I know the chancellors share your concerns about the timeliness. We've got work to do. We accept that. We recognize that. I think some of the proposals we've tried to make, I think, would have the consequence of speeding the process and making it more fair. Having a committee at the sort of system level, which removes some of the tensions that might swirl around a campus, will help with a fair and more efficient process, but one that still respects faculty self-governance. So we're hoping that we can lean in the direction of the kinds of reforms that you've talked about, but we will get there by May, and the regents will be able to make their decisions by July.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Regent Lieb. Regent Elliott.
Thank you. Thank you, Regent Lieb and Regent Riley, for your comments and your clarification. One of the things that I was hoping would come out of this is a fairly broad look and not limiting ourselves in terms of things that are being discussed. And the way it's been presented, it feels to me like you're setting parameters on what will be considered and what will be discussed in terms of only around sort of the timing and the timelines, with big loopholes baked into that. And so my hope is that that the three regents that Chair Riley just mentioned will have the ability to engage and give some clarity on some other ideas and thoughts that we as a board may have, and not wait until May to get something that may be more limited than what we want to be part of the discussion.
This is not intended to set any boundaries whatsoever, but the concerns that were expressed to us most vocally had to do with the elapsed time. This is what Regent Lieb has pointed to in particular. That's why I addressed those particular issues, to show you that we've already done some, I think, significant thinking about what would speed the timeline. But this is not intended to create boundaries around what this committee can be concerned with, and the involvement of the regents will help them understand what the other broad concerns might be.
Regent Schurz.
Thank you. I agree with what Regent Lieb and Regent Elliott said and what Chair Riley said, but I got to just say, for the record, the current process in my mind is unacceptable. It's not working. It's not working at all. The concept of having faculty perform self-governance, it's not working. We've seen that. We've seen that with a couple of instances that are going on as we speak at certain campuses where the faculty is not able to self-govern. And for me, this timeline's not fast enough. I know we're talking about May and July, but I've been around long enough to know that these things get delayed over and over and over again. And I'm fearful that we're going to wake up a year from now and still not have any decisions made. I would just encourage the three regent panel to look at this holistically, say just because we did it one way yesterday doesn't mean we need to do it that way tomorrow. And I think, and likely, we're going to need to upend the system. It's not working. Nothing about this system is working right now. It takes too long. Many people say it's not fair on both sides. So I think it needs to be rethought. I hope we can do it quickly. And like Regent Elliott said, anything and everything should be on the table. Nothing should be excluded. And I hope we can get there in a much quicker way so that a number of these outstanding issues that are sitting out there can get adjudicated and justice can be served and we can see some fairness put back into the system. Thank you very much.
We appreciate the sincerity and degree of concern you've expressed. This is not a trivial undertaking on our part. When I have asked my colleagues to report back by May, it's because I expect them to report back by May. And the engagement of the 3 Regent Committee will be taken very seriously, and I'm sure will help us to address the kinds of concerns that you've raised. And you will be in a position to take action by July. That's actually a fairly efficient timeline as things go in the University of California. And I'm committed to making sure that they work in ways that are respectful of all the traditions as well as the ambitions that you have for fairness and balance in our system.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. This was a first step in a conversation where we hope to see holistic reforms that lead to fair, transparent process that's based on evidence that both protects academic freedom, freedom of speech, and ensures that transgressions are not left unaddressed for inordinate periods of time. I will also ask, though, that we address the non-Senate faculty question that was brought up earlier today. But with that, I can conclude this item and adjourn.
I just wanted to conclude by, thanking all of Provost Newman. Thank you so much. Faculty Representative Chung, thank you very much. And to the 3 regents who are going to take on this endeavor, much appreciated. I think there's obviously much interest. We all have interest for the greater interest of the university and look forward to hearing back in May. And if there's any, problems getting there, I know you'll certainly let us know in any way that we can be of assistance. But thank you very much.